Hey, good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of the Ride Along Radio Show. Today's Thursday, February 18th, 2016. I think this is like show 18, man.
I lost count. I don't know.
I do the schedule or the outline every week, and so I number them, and that's the only way I'm able to keep up with it. I wouldn't think that we're there, but almost into the 20s now. So, hey, thanks for jumping in the car with us for this hour here at the Ride Along Radio Show. Our whole premise is that we are former police officers, and we use our expertise, we use our police experience, our training, our backgrounds to tackle the issues of the day as they relate to law enforcement, as they relate to the community. My name is George Holt.
I'm Gil Contreras.
And you'll find that we work together. We've known each other for 25 plus years, but you're going to find some disparate opinions on many things between the two of us.
To say the least.
To say the least. So we got that balance. We're missing Kent Lee this week. He's out at the bunker.
Well, I was going to talk about Kent Lee for just a second. Kent and I have this way of communicating. He monitors the airwaves from his bunker high in the hills of an undisclosed location. So when it's safe for him to come down, I get on the air, and this is what I say. Jean has a long mustache.
Yeah.
Jean has a long mustache. So that's for Kent.
Okay, good. Then he'll know the chair is against the wall, right? So I actually was going to go to the bunker before my trip tonight to Atlanta was planned. The plan was when the show was over, I was going to go home, sleep real quick, and then get up and head out to meet him at the bunker. But I can't do it, so I'm going to have to go out there next time he goes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's beautiful up there.
That's what I hear, man. That's what I hear.
Last time I was at the bunker, smoked a cigar and had a beer by moonlight, man.
Nice.
And of course, Rhonda was there, so
nice. Yeah,
we're
so
safe.
You had it all covered against the coyotes and
we could hear them,
rattlesnakes.
But in addition to Rhonda, everybody's strapped in Arizona. So
right, exactly. So you're not worried about it.
Mm-mm.
So we typically follow up from the last show, and our last show was about the Beyonce Black Panther deal, and we got. Well, it wasn't just that though. We went into Black Lives Matter. We went into Trayvon Martin. We went into Mike Brown a little bit. We went into a lot of stuff, and we got a couple of phone calls.
Right, and in terms of the recap, I mean, we did talk about the Beyonce thing, and I want to do an update on that.
Yeah,
and then also on the terrorists in San Bernardino. Apparently, I was saying I don't believe that they can't open the damn.
Well, I was saying, I said I think it's a trap. But we were just talking about that, and here we go.
It was no trap, and the federal court has issued an order to Apple to help the FBI, create a key or a back door into their operating system to get pull that data out of there, and Apple's refusing so far. So. Right,
and you know what? Shout out to Apple for that, because a lot of times you'll have these service providers, these manufacturers, these products who willingly go along when the government asks them for something because they want either favors on the back end or leniency on the back end, or they just think it's their patriotic duty and maybe they don't want it to get out that they're not cooperating or whatever. But Apple stood firm.
Yeah, and a lot of these cell phone carriers, back in the day, if you wanted information on somebody's account, you had to provide a warrant.
Yes, you did.
You had to get a warrant, and so, but now, after the Patriot Act and after the terrorism, it's a one-page thing.
Right, it's a form.
You fax them the form, they send you the data, and it's just that quick.
Exactly.
So, as one who's concerned about his privacy and the Constitution, especially with the upcoming election, and especially in light of the death of Chief Justice Scalia, that Constitution is hanging in the balance. And so, my privacy and everybody should be concerned about the privacy and government overreach.
Well, that's why I say that's why I shout out to Apple, and we have a phone call. We haven't given out the phone number yet.
Wow.
But we got a phone call already. I think that's a record. That's a show record. We never had a phone call.
We're just at the intro, for God's sake.
So early in the show. So caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Los Angeles. My name is David.
Hi, David.
How are you? Good. Like I said, whether to stop usually, see if you have any with a possible cause for DUI of that nature.
What's a probable cause for DUI? Okay. Well, in my experience, I'll get behind someone and I'll observe how they're driving, and typically weaving, right? We'll see that people weaving between the lines. People stopping at lights and falling asleep. That's a good one. We've got a couple of good deuces like that.
Driving with your high beams on.
Or headlights off. No headlights at all. That one too.
Or no headlights, correct. And I remember when I was in Hollenbeck, because I was a DUI expert back then, we used to say that if you saw a Mexican driving a car down First Street in Hollenbeck Division wearing a cowboy hat, he was a .20. So.
Coming from Los Globos? Oh no, La Zona Rosa. That was the big one. LZR was the big one in Hollenbeck Division.
David,
so you can say that. I can't say that, but okay.
David, I kind of recognize your voice. What does DUI stops have to do with what we're talking about in privacy and that? What's the connection, brother?
It's like there is like a lot of people that does it, like when the way they drive, and even on freeway on the street, or not even that, like texting and driving, same issue.
Got you. All right. Well, listen, David, thanks for the call, and appreciate the call and appreciate you listening.
And you got the record, David. Earliest call ever. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
So, on the issue of privacy and these manufacturers, when I work in narcotics, we had a case where we had a person who was selling narcotics, who was doing all kind of loan fraud, like ID theft kind of a thing. And he had a vehicle that he had gotten through a fraudulent loan. He was paying the loan, but this wasn't in his name.
Right.
So the vehicle wasn't in his name, any of that. Well, we found out that vehicle, when we went to the dealership and got the paperwork, when he bought the car, he bought a subscription, and they're out of business now, so I can say it. He bought a subscription to Teletrack. Remember, these used to be LoJack and Teletrack?
Oh, yeah.
The stolen vehicle recovery people, right? All right. So my partner, God rest his soul, Kenny found out that if you called Teletrack, they would help you. They would walk you through the warrant process, because you had to go to them with a search warrant.
Right.
And they would turn that guy's Teletrack on, because we didn't know where he laid his head at night, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just it's very manpower intensive to put a surveillance on somebody to find that out.
Right.
So Teletrack had their law enforcement division, all former cops, and they walked Kenny through the process to get the search warrant to bring to them so they could activate the Teletrack. And every 24 hours, they would send us a printout of where that vehicle had been. Mm-hmm. Now, it always struck me as really kind of chicken shit, because he's the customer. You know what I mean?
Right. He's
paying the bill to them every month, and yet they went out of their way to help us track him down.
Right.
Okay? And they needed a warrant, but that was, you need this warrant here.
Right.
Here's what you do to get this warrant so we can help you, kind of a thing. And it was nothing having to do with protecting the person's privacy or anything like that. And that's how we caught the guy.
It's the same. It's the same with the cell phone carriers. They make it so easy for cops. It's become all just perfunctory now.
Right.
They don't even verify the warrant. If they get the paper, they give you the info, and then
because they figure, hey, if you're turning in a false warrant, that's on you. I mean,
exactly.
They figure you're operating in good faith. They're operating in good faith, and they don't want to be seen as holding up the process when you present them with a warrant.
Right.
So they're going to go ahead and do that. But privacy is such a huge thing that we take for granted. And I think we all kind of figure that, the government's going to get whatever they want anyway, but there are legal hurdles to that.
Well, and we hear of all this money that the government is spending on surveillance, and the NSA, and we have Ed Snowden hiding now in Russia, and I kind of think, well, they can do whatever they want. They can get whatever they want. Well, apparently that's not true.
Right. Apparently not.
And so when I read the story, I was like, man, I need to go switch to iPhone. Because if I ever were to get arrested for anything, whatever it is,
right.
Number one, I'm not saying anything. But number two, I don't want them to be able to get my phone and then just start scrolling through it.
Right.
You get a warrant, okay, they get the warrant, now they start scrolling through my phone, and now all my data, all my photos, all my emails, all
text messages,
everything's there.
Contacts, emails, everything.
I'm no criminal, but I don't want that. I don't want them to have access.
So you remember back when we were doing gang enforcement in the late 80s, early 90s, gangbangers didn't really have cell phones. Some of them did, but what did they have? They all had beepers.
Right. Well, they had those big ones, those big cell phones.
Yeah, the big brick cell phones. Right. But even the little poop butts on the dirt bikes had beepers.
Right. Everybody had a beeper. And so we would stop people, and then, sometimes we'd go through their beepers. Yeah.
And then we were told that unless a person gives you permission, to flip through that beeper, you're going to need a warrant before you can go in there and do that. But that was something that it was new technology. The law hadn't caught up with the technology yet. And we were just doing like we would do if we detained you and went through your pockets.
That's right. We considered it just an extension of our, pre-arrest or incident to arrest search.
Yeah, exactly. So, people's rights will be violated if there aren't safeguards in place. And even when there are safeguards in place, people's rights still get violated, but at least there's some recourse. At least there's some way for you to deal with that if you're in that position and your rights get violated.
And I think San Bernardino was a wake-up call for us. That was,
it should have been.
That was a terrorist attack, and we had a terrorist attack at Fort Hood, Texas. The president wouldn't even call it that. He's reluctant to even say radical Islamic terrorists.
Workplace violence is how I was painted.
But there's no doubt that they're here. There's no doubt that we're there's no doubt in my mind that the information on that phone is probably going to be of investigative value. But how valuable? Is it so valuable that it kind of supersedes our rights? And I say no. I say make the detectives work. You can't, if you want the information, you can't get it. Okay, guess what? You got to hit the street.
Well, and here's the other thing too.
Cases are cleared by shoe leather.
Well, here's the other thing too. If it was that valuable, where it was going to prevent something that was imminent, we've lost exigency a long time ago now. San Bernardino happened in December or November.
I think it's November.
November. San Bernardino happened in November of last year. Exigency is exigent circumstances, meaning if we don't do this right now, somebody's going to get hurt, somebody's going to die, another crime is going to be committed. And so you can use that then sometime to operate without a search warrant if you can prove exigent circumstances. Well,
Mark Furman tried that on the OJ.
Yeah, he tried that with the OJ thing when he jumped over the wall.
We'll
exactly,
get to OJ
right?
in a minute.
But 90 days, 120 days later, it's real hard to argue exigency at this point. So,
and there's got to be other ways. And I saw today in the news that they served a search warrant at his brother's pad, and they took a bunch of stuff. So
one of the San Bernardino shooters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I say, hey, detectives, FBI agents, keep working.
Yeah, detectives, get to detecting.
That's right. Knock on doors. That's how you solve crimes. You knock on doors and you get out there on the street.
All right. So we have another phone call. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, what's up, fellas? It's Dwight Kirkpatrick in Cali.
Hey, man, you made it, huh?
Yeah, I know, right?
He says he can never catch a show live. I see him on Facebook. He says he can never catch a show live, but now he has.
Yeah, man. Is this going to be your permanent time, 7:30 to 8:30? Or what?
No, we're probably going to stick with our 8 to 9 and maybe even 8 to 9:30 starting next month, something like that. We'll see.
I kind of like 7:30.
Do you?
I'm just saying.
Okay, well, let's see.
I'm just saying. This is just me, though. Just me.
Well, the issue is there's another show right before us, and so then our producer, the poetess, has to get the studio turned over between shows.
The one and only.
I think she was kind of on a tight schedule, turning it around on a 30-minute warning today.
She got it cracking over here.
Oh, she got it going.
Over at Moore's Media, it's like this, okay?
Yeah, and then intern Darren was here to help a little bit, too. So.
All right, guys, let me chime in on something real quick.
Okay.
I heard you guys were talking about the stuff with Apple and FBI, court order or whatever. Well, I was always under the impression that was the case to begin with. Like a lot of times when folks, get these new apps or these smart TVs or hell, even like the Xbox, the video. If you don't read the fine print, they always say something like, anything that you do, broadcast or whatever,
that's
is property of such and such system. Now, if there was a court order, a subpoena, I was always under the impression that regardless, they would have to give it up, to whoever's putting in the subpoena, like the FBI or any other, higher official. What I don't know the term to use, but you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, for sure. So, and I think the instance here is that the data is encrypted, and so they got the warrant.
They can't
to
even
go
get
into the phone.
They can't even get in the phone.
Right, they can't even get past the encryption, and so now they're saying to Apple, "Yeah, we got this warrant. We want you to create this back door for us to be able to go in through, and for not just this case, but future cases too." And I think that's the issue here.
Wouldn't Apple already be privy to the type of encryptions and stuff that's being?
Oh yeah, it's not that Apple can't do it.
Well, no, it's actually that's what they said today. Is that they set it up so that they couldn't even do it.
Oh really?
So they would have to create the software to get into.
So on the new iPhones, basically.
Correct. They would have to do. They would have to be something they would have to create, and that's what this case is about. It's unprecedented for the court system to tell a private company you have to create this whole new thing,
right,
to allow the government to get into a product that you created.
Well, here's a word to the wise: don't do that next iPhone software update, the next iOS.
Well,
it's probably going to be in there.
I got one more thing before I
sure.
Get out. Now, me and a couple of my buddies, we've been making jokes, especially like when I used to work up in the prison. We were making jokes saying, like, we're going to get a whole bunch of, cats getting arrested when they buy this brand new Xbox. You got a lot of drug dealers or whatever doing their business with the Xbox, and for all we know,
right in front of the Xbox.
What they doing. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They get the court order to, kick down the Nino Brown's door, and then, they got him smack dab in the middle of everything.
But you know what? That's interesting. Because, it's a live camera and it's set up right there. But what about the Samsung smart TVs? That was something that just came out, too, about Samsung and their smart TVs.
Yeah, that's
they say
this. And we got probably 2 of them up in my house. I always tell my wife, we shouldn't be doing, or talking in front of the TVs, because for all we know, we might be, broadcasted or whatever.
Exactly.
I know. Watch what you do in front of those things.
I know people who put a piece of tape.
Oh, yeah.
Over the camera.
Sure, over the camera, sure.
On the laptop. They'll just put it, you don't know who's looking anymore.
Yeah, and now they can turn that camera on without the light coming on.
Right.
To say that the camera's on, too.
And every one of those apps that you download, if you open up your phone and you see all those little boxes, all those little apps that are there, and I do all my banking and all, but every one of them, Dwight's exactly right. They ask you for, we need access to your contacts,
your location,
photos, all that stuff.
Location settings. How about that one? All the time.
So it's, I just figure, I'm so out there anyway, I couldn't hide if I wanted to at this point in my life.
Right. Yeah.
So I just go ahead and download and try to be as careful as I can. But, what little privacy I have left, I want to keep.
Well, we're trading privacy for convenience. But hey, Dwight, thanks for your call, man. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Man, I'm going to try to get you guys live a lot more often, but, man, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks for calling in. Okay, folks, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to get back into our news of the day and the Black Panthers, et cetera, et cetera. Calling number is 323-293-3375. All right, so we're back. Welcome back to the Ride Along Radio Show. We're going to jump back in the car and keep pushing. So we're down to what about? We're rolling pretty good. We got a good time. Okay, so we were covering Apple and the FBI.
Right, and then the other follow-up was, we kind of talked about Beyonce's performance at the Super Bowl.
Yes.
And her, kind of tribute to Malcolm X, the Black Panthers, and even the Black Lives Matter movement. Well, today, in another twist in the story, apparently her next performance is in Tampa, Florida.
Right.
And so the Tampa Police Department, they put out a sign-up sheet for cash OT to work security at the event.
Right.
Nobody has signed up.
Wow.
They don't want to work it because of her performance at the Super Bowl. Well, now the Miami Fraternal Order of Police has gotten involved, and they've called on cops all over the country to boycott Beyonce's schedule. So any city that she goes to, they're asking the police to refuse to work security for the event.
Now, see, that bothers me, and here's why. I don't see her performance as being anti-police. I saw her performance as being anti-police brutality, but we had that conversation already last week.
Right, but it was more of a tribute
to the Black Panthers.
Correct.
And the Black Panthers.
And Malcolm.
And Malcolm X with the X's, but certainly the Black Panthers.
And the BLM.
Right. Well, that was the video mostly, right? With yeah. But, when somebody can't voice their opinion about something, and then again, this is voluntary, so let's be clear about that. Nobody's saying that if Beyonce and Jay-Z need to call the police to their house, that the police aren't coming. Nobody's saying that they won't be provided the same baseline security services as any other citizen, any other taxpayer. This is for an additional duty thing, additional security for concerts that she puts on. And nobody's obligated to work that. It's voluntary. It's cash overtime. And so officers are apparently deciding or opting out.
Correct. They
had
nobody sign up.
Right.
And
so
now a lieutenant from the department said, we're still kind of far out, and we're going to provide what we need for the crowd that's going to be there.
Right.
We have to make sure that it's safe for everybody to be in there. So, I have a feeling they're just going to assign officers to the thing.
Right.
If they
so
can't
it's
get
like
anybody to sign up for overtime.
Then you're going to have to do it based on seniority or whatever. So they're going to have to do it.
Hey, today you guys are working over here, but they're going to have cops. But they're more making a statement.
Making a statement, sure. And you know what? And that's their right. That's their right. And again, it's not that it's not they're not going to do their duty. Because I saw somebody post on Facebook, hey, they're unprofessional, whatever. It's not that they're not doing their duty. It's that they're not volunteering to work the additional overtime to work an additional security capacity.
That, so.
And that's their right. I mean, they didn't like what she said. This is the way to do it, I guess. So that's...
But I think, the Fraternal Order of Police, the Miami Fraternal Order of Police, calling for a nationwide... I'm not a boycott guy. I know Latinos love boycotts.
No uvas.
We want to... Yeah.
Remember that?
Uvas, no.
No, uvas, no.
But I don't think they're very effective, and
they draw a lot of attention.
They draw some attention, but it just makes you look like please.
Well, it depends on what you're boycotting, right?
I just tell you this:
maybe they lost their effectiveness over the years.
If Beyonce's people call my company, Rhonda and I and our security force will be there.
Right. And that as soon as you said that.
You don't hear me, though. Is this thing on? Hello? Test, test. You don't hear me, though. You don't hear me, though. I'll work it in a hot minute. Well,
that's the thing. When you said that, the first thing I thought was private security.
Yeah.
Okay. Private security. That's cool.
That's right.
If that's what you want to do, And what will happen is a lot of those private security companies will hire off-duty cops who they won't work it in uniform. But they'll just come and work it and whatever. Guys still got child support. Guys still got alimony. Guys still got jet skis they shouldn't have bought.
That's right.
So they're going to be there.
The wife,
cut it out.
The wife, the kids, the girlfriend. It gets expensive.
Exactly. Right. All the above. So they're gonna be there regardless. Anybody can say whatever they want to say. Guys are going to show up. They're going to show up, or the repo man's going to show up at the house to get that boat and that truck. And other stuff that you can't afford.
I think they're just making, they're just bringing more attention to it than what's new. I would just let this thing die. Like I said last week, I think cops are overreacting to this.
And I agree with you on that. I think that, we don't have to have such a shrill response to everything that we don't like. You're supposed to understand that that's part of the job. Danger, scorn, and ridicule. That's in the law enforcement code of ethics, right? That, you're supposed to maintain courageous calm in the face of danger, scorn, and ridicule.
Right.
And that's why you get yelled at in the police academy, right? To inoculate you to that kind of crap when you get out in the street.
Exactly.
Hey, everybody's not going to like us. What did you say about being a fireman?
Yeah. But my tech staff told us that, hey, if you want people to like you, join the fire department.
There you go.
You're at the wrong academy.
There you go.
Like,
that's
okay.
That's how that goes. So I understand the guys are upset, and it's their way of expressing it, and it's their right.
That's right.
But it's just not something that
Right. And and I know we're going to talk about the Black Panther thing because I took the time to because I told you before I listened to Black Talk Radio on Sirius XM, and I didn't even know about this this documentary that was released, and I think it's called
just came out
called the Black Panthers, the Vanguard of the Revolution. It was on PBS a couple nights ago, and I actually took the time to watch it, and I found it very eye opening. And after having watched it, I understood why law enforcement is having the reaction that they're having to it.
I understood it better myself, yes.
Because the Black Panthers, even though they fed children, and even though they were educating children, and even though they were professing, self-actualization in the community, not to rely on the government or anybody else, their primary goal, however, was the violent overthrow of the United States government because they were leaning towards communism. And that's what and I remember because I was a kid back then. I'm a little bit older than you.
Right.
So I was a kid, and I remember the Black Panthers, and I remember, the Brown Berets in East L.A.
Yeah, definitely, right.
And my dad hated the Brown Berets. He said these goddamn communists, and that's what he thought of them.
Right. He was military, right?
But he was a military, 82nd.
So he just come back from fighting the communists, right?
And he was in the National Guard, and I remember during the Watts riots, I remember because we lived in L.A., and I remember my dad in his uniform in the backyard, and I remember all of us huddled in the back patio of my grandmother's house, all the lights off, and my dad with a sidearm and his rifle.
Wow.
And guys were driving by and throwing bottles and yelling and screaming.
You are a little bit older than me. I was exactly a month before I was born.
And I was a kid, I was little. I was a little kid.
Yeah, you weren't in high school or anything. Right.
But, I'll never forget that moment. So You know, and in the documentary, one of the people that was interviewed was the guy that you actually had on the show, Ron McCarthy.
Yeah, I saw that. Right.
He was on there, and I applaud Ron for taking part in the project, because, you know, most cops, you go, hey, we want to interview.
Right. Well, him, Pat McKinley, our old chief, Bob Smithson.
Right. Bob
he
Smithson.
was interviewed too.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you know, when McCarthy said, you know, I was told that they wanted to violently overthrow the government and kill cops. He said, that's all I need.
That's all I needed to hear.
That's all I need to know about
and
them.
you know, and I agree with you on that in terms of where the Black Panthers ended up. But I don't want to skip over how they got there either. The Black Panthers didn't start off with that aim, but the Black Panthers were targeted. They were targeted by the FBI. They were targeted by local law enforcement.
However, they were targeted because of their desire to violently overthrow the United States government and to meet law enforcement face to face with whatever, by any means necessary. That's what made them dangerous. So the other thing that I took away from the documentary was that I realized that the issues that black people face in those, especially black men, young black men, the issues they faced then are very different from the issues that they face now. The Black Lives Matter movement, or I won't even call it a movement because there's not enough of them, but the Black Lives Matter folks are nowhere near what the Black Panthers were.
Well, and that's why I always want to make that distinction between the new Black Panther Party that a lot of people like to conveniently confuse with the original Black Panther Party for self-defense. That party was full of educated people.
That's right,
who were thinkers.
But the reason they formed was because of the brutality and excessive force that was being imposed upon them by police officers and police departments.
Randomly.
That at the time, we're mostly white.
Right.
And race was a part of it. In 2016, that's just not true. In 1966, it was true.
It was everyday. It was everyday life, and it was out in the open, and nobody felt the need to even deny it.
In 2016, it's what we're going to get to today, and that's about what do you do, how do you act when you get stopped by the cops, and we're going to get into that. That's what the issue is today. Having watched this documentary, and I recommend if you haven't seen it,
definitely do yourself a favor and see it.
Yeah, and I tweeted out the link to you guys earlier today.
We retweeted.
So it's on the Ride Along Radio Twitter account. Page.
It's just go to pbs.org, whatever your local PBS station is. It's just pbs.org, and it should be right there. Black Panthers, Vanguard of the Revolution. And it's very, very informative, enlightening.
Stanley Nelson's film. And I just thought it was a great documentary. It was very
I'm almost done with it. I'm about 20 minutes shy of the end. I'm at the part where Huey Newton's been released.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil that for any of you guys, but it's historical, so no spoilers, right? They do let him go eventually. I'm at the part where he's just been released, and now there's been some fracture in the party.
Yeah, and then when Aldrich Cleaver goes to Africa and he's hiding in Algeria,
right?
And then it all kind of falls apart after that,
right?
But it was really eye opening, and there's some really good footage that I'd never seen before, and then there was some stuff that I did remember.
Well, there was some stuff that I knew about COINTELPRO, right? The FBI's counterintelligence program that was designed to destroy the Black Panthers by whatever means necessary, literally. But I didn't know that it was such an insidious thing. I knew they had informants. I knew the informant had set Fred Hampton up to be murdered. But I didn't realize that they were sending letters to people's spouses and trying to create all kind of dissension within the ranks. And then they finally started leaning toward assassination, started getting into assassinations and things like that. But, that party, when I saw that they reached out to the hillbillies. You saw that?
Yes.
The Young Patriots?
Correct.
They had actually formed an alliance with real hillbillies from the Appalachians, and they were working together, and their whole thing was because we're all impoverished. And that's where the Marxism came in.
Because they were experiencing, poor white people were experiencing the exact same oppression as poor black people.
Right. And you know what? And we're fond of saying that classism is the new racism, but I don't think it's new.
Right.
We've always had classism. Even in countries where everybody's pretty much the same color, you still have classism.
And one more thing that I took from the video was Ron McCarthy talked about a shootout between the Black Panther Party and the LAPD SWAT team, and three officers were shot in that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. I remember the shootout with the SLA in '71,
right?
Because I was in junior high. Actually, I was a police explorer during that, and I knew cops who saw it on TV.
Oh, we know. We both worked with guys who went down there. We know. Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, when we came on, there were still cops who were on the job. But I knew guys who ran out of ammo. Had to go back to the station to get ammo to come back. Well, I knew the Black Panthers because if you look at LAPD SWAT patch, it says 41. 41, I think 53 or 52. Right, but no, 41 is because 41st and Central is where the Black Panther shootout happened. Oh, okay. And then 52nd or 53rd Street or maybe 54th was with the SLA.
52, correct.
Right, because it was outside the Pueblos. We used to go to Pueblos, right. So I knew that they had been involved there. I didn't know 3 officers got hit, though.
Yeah, there was 3 officers shot, and I was just like, wow, I didn't. Well, of course, I was a kid, so I wasn't paying attention to the news the way that I do now. But I just thought it was really good. And
it is, and no matter where you fall on the spectrum, you need to see this thing because it's about. And I always say this, and Kent Lee gets mad. He rolls his eyes when I say this. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, right? So to a large section of the population, Black Panthers were terrorists. To another section of the population, they were freedom fighters. I asked my older sister today. All my sisters are older than me, but I asked my middle sister today. I said, "Hey, you growing up in L.A. and she was a teenager during the '60s." Mm-hmm. I said, "What was your take on the Black Panthers?" Right out of her mouth, I loved them. I thought it was great. Da 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 da.
Well, that was the other thing was the number of females who were involved.
Oh yeah, a lot.
They wanted to be Panthers also.
Right, quite a few.
And of course the what do you call it? What's the word? The ism for it? Where sexism.
Sexism.
They encountered sexism in the Panthers.
And she even said that. Yeah. She goes, "We didn't get these brothers from revolutionary heaven, right? They weren't perfect, so there were definitely sexist attitudes that went on."
They said, "Hey, I want a gun too."
Right.
No, we can't give you a gun.
Definitely check that out. No doubt. I mean, it's certainly worth watching no matter where you fall on the political spectrum. So that's really cool that we covered that. And then, I mean, I guess the reason we covered it is because it's the 50th anniversary, which is why she did the show and why they did the
So at least I understood better why law enforcement was having such a reaction to her quote tribute close quote to the Panthers.
It would be like a younger person not understanding why people are pissed off at Jane Fonda still.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
If you weren't around back then, you didn't really get the whole gist of it. I mean, we came from environments where we were constantly reminded about Hanoi Jane,
right, et
cetera, So no, that's definitely got to see it. I know we can't say it enough. You got to check out the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
So all right, cool. So now we have we're going to get into our topic today, which is what to do.
Wait, can I do?
Oh, I'm sorry. You got to do your thing. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead because we can't miss a segment because then we'll never catch up. It's highly serialized. It's not like Netflix. It's like The Walking Dead. We can't miss a segment. We got to do the OJ show. Yeah. What happened?
Look, let me just tell you. Last night's episode opens with Bob Kardashian and the 4 Kardashian kids.
They keep bringing them into it.
Oh man, this was terrible. It was so hokey. I mean, me and my boo, we just rolled our eyes, and I was like, no. But so it opens with Kardashian and his 4 kids, Kimmy, Khloe, Kourtney, and little Rob.
Right, because what's her name's not even in the picture because Bruce Jenner is not openly seeing Kris yet.
No, they're already married. They're divorced. He was divorced already when OJ did this thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they go to this restaurant.
Allegedly. Go ahead.
They go to this restaurant and of course the waitress recognizes him and she goes, "Oh, you're Bill Cordovian," so they don't have to wait in line. She takes him back. Okay. So as he's talking to his kids, he says, he goes. One of the kids says, "Do you think OJ did it?" And he gets really angry.
I bet he does.
No, of course he didn't do it. Your uncle. He's a good guy. And
oh, that's right. I forgot about that. It was that relationship. It wasn't just his attorney.
That was
his buddy. Yeah.
And he was godmother or godfather to one of them. I don't know if it was Kim or Khloe, but
he said he was father or godfather.
Godfather.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Yeah, not dad.
I don't know.
So anyway,
this thing on? All right.
So anyway, they asked the kid. He says, and I'm going to say that to the world because I'm being interviewed by Barbara Walters.
Okay.
And then the kids say, "Oh, are you going to be famous?" One of the kids says, "Oh, are you going to?" I think it's little Rob. "Oh, are you going to be famous?" Bruce is famous because he was in the Olympics, and Mom was famous because she sold Thigh Master on TV. Are you going to be famous too?
Wow.
And I'm just rolling my eyes at all of this.
And the little kids are all sitting there thinking about all that fame around them, yeah.
Well, then they say, then Bob Kardashian said, and I wrote this actually at the end of the show, I said, go back to the beginning because I want to write this down because this is ridiculous. So this is what Bob Kardashian says to his kids when they're talking about fame and being famous, if he was going to be famous. He says, "We're Kardashians, and in this family, being loyal and a good person is more important than being famous." He said, "Fame means nothing at all without a virtuous heart."
And he said that to them. Were they listening?
To the little kids, and then they kind of, and then they fade out, and it fades to commercial.
Oh my God! So that means they had a hand in all this. Then.
Oh my!
They obviously had some editorial oversight in this, or something.
Because I know it's based on the book by Jeffrey Toobin,
who was interviewed on CNN about it the other day, by the way.
Yeah, if his book is as hokey as the screenplay, that's a book you can just leave right off.
Wow, he's done some good stuff though. Didn't he do Black Hawk Down? Is that the same guy?
No,
that was Mark Bolton did Black Hawk Down.
Right.
He did something similar though. Jeffrey Toobin did something that was it was a military kind of spec ops kind of a thing he'd written. I'll have to look it up.
I don't know.
Intern Darren, look that up. Jeffrey Toobin.
So anyway, in the segment last night, so Bob Shapiro's investigator, who's a guy named Pat McNamara, he goes to the court and he starts looking up records, and he finds that the detective who initially responded to the homicide scene, Detective Mark Furman, had filed a lawsuit against the police department in response to a disciplinary action that was taken against him for excessive force. And what the court record showed was that Furman said in his lawsuit that being a Los Angeles police officer, because of the nature of the work, forced him to become a bigot.
Oh wow!
It was the job. Now I didn't know that, and I don't know that that's true, but that's where they're saying this is where it began focusing on.
Start unraveling, yeah.
So once Shapiro finds that out, he begins to in his head go, "Hey, wait a minute."
Now we're going to start with this race card.
They have all this evidence against OJ, but if we can switch the focus from homicide to this racist cop,
right,
who has a history, and
turned out it was quite the bigot. I mean, apparently with all the Nazi memorabilia and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't mean that he didn't do his job properly.
Right.
But apparently that was something that they needed to know about anyway.
I don't know if he had Nazi memorabilia or not, and
I remember that being something that came up.
Yeah. So after that, Shapiro ends up doing an interview with the New Yorker magazine, and this is where he begins to lay out his theory about Mark Furman, this racist cop,
right,
who wants to
frame
OJ because the LAPD has a long history of doing that to black men.
That ties back in with the Black Panthers, right? I mean, kind of what we're talking about.
And then shortly after that, he and F. Lee Bailey consult with Alan Dershowitz, and next thing you know, they're calling Johnny Cochran, and the rest is history.
Okay, that's how Johnny Cochran got involved.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know how that came to be.
Yeah. And apparently OJ was against Cochran. OJ was against, apparently, according to the teleplay, OJ was against, he liked cops. He liked the LAPD.
Well, one of his friends, Ron Shipp, was hanging out with him. He's a LAPD cop, or at least he was.
Yeah, so... he didn't want to go that direction, but the Kardashian and the team convinced him.
Do you want to stay free
and
enjoy
this or prison?
Right,
because they got a case. And then when they bring Dershowitz in, he brings Barry Scheck, who was at that time the foremost guy on DNA. And he has to kind of explain it to them. But once they kind of understand it, and this is where they say, hey, we're going to contest every part of the evidence, everything they picked up, how they collected it, because he knew at that time cops were not experts at
right, and nobody was, but especially people were supposed to be collecting it.
Right, and if you saw the trial, I remember the guy's name. His name was Dennis Fung. Because I felt so bad for him. He was the criminalist from LAPD SID.
And Andrea... what's her name? The female white that came out with him. It was Dennis Fung and Andrea something, because she came out to a crime scene we had in Jordan Downs where a guy got busted in the head with a skillet, and a piece of his scalp was still on the skillet. And I remember she was a criminalist that had to analyze the book, the evidence. I remember that. Andrea Mazzola or something, or Mazzoli, something like that. I remember that. Yeah.
So I'm sure they're going to be in the future episodes, but they, in the trial, because I watched the trial, they just tore Dennis Fung up one way.
Yeah, well, he was explaining something that people were looking at like it was voodoo or something.
Right, and they just challenged the way he collected it, the way they stored it, the way they transported it.
Right, everything.
And then and part of the blood evidence, Lang and Van Adder, after a long day, had blood, OJ's blood, a sample of it, in the trunk of the police car. So it's Friday night. They're done for the weekend.
They left it out there.
They left it in the car
instead of refrigerating
it.
Like
taking it to the station, dropping it off, book it. They don't want. I'm tired. You know what? I'll get to it Monday. And they took it.
Well, that's sloppiness. We talked about that the other day about laziness and sloppiness, right, in police work. Hey, let's just delve into our topic here because we're about out of out of time.
That's it for OJ.
Okay, we'll catch up with OJ next week. I'm going to try to DVR it. Okay, so we talk all the time about how so many instances of police violence, whether they be justified or not justified, starts with noncompliance.
Right.
And one of the things that Roger Rod talked about when he was here was that, when people learn to drive, they're taught everything about operating that motor vehicle and moving around in traffic. You're even taught what to do if you get in an accident, but you're never taught what to do when you get stopped by the police. And that's probably something they should incorporate in driver's education because everybody's going to get stopped at some point or another. Some of us more than others, but somebody's going to get stopped.
Here we go.
Everybody's going to get stopped. No, if you can't drive, what are you, sensitive? If you can't drive, you drive too fast. What do you think I was saying?
Here we go, POTUS. Here we go.
All right. Some of us, depend on where you drive and how fast you drive. Okay, so we're going to talk about that, what to do and what not to do when you get stopped by the police. And there's a short video the ACLU put together, and we're going to play that, and then we're going to talk about that for a little bit.
What should you do if the police stop you on the street in the U.S.? Stay calm and don't argue. Keep your hands where police can see them. You have the right to remain silent. Say it out loud. Ask if you are being detained. If not, you are free to leave. If so, you have the right to find out why. You have the right to refuse consent to a search of your car, your home, or yourself, unless the police have a search warrant or suspect that your car contains evidence of a crime. But police can pat you down for weapons. Without a warrant, police cannot search your phone or confiscate footage, and you do have the right to film police in public. If you are arrested, you have the right to know why and the right to a lawyer, even a free one. Check out your local ACLU for more info.
All right. Now, I like that video because it's truthful. I can't dispute anything that they said in that video. I do, though, want to add some things, and I do want to clarify some things. The part when they said, don't argue, you have a right to find out why you were stopped, but that's not a condition of you complying. Okay? You can't say, if I tell you put your hands behind your back, turn around, put your hands behind your back, why'd you stop me? You can ask me that as you're turning around, putting your hands behind your back. But it's not, I won't turn around and put my hands behind my back until you tell me why you stopped me. That's not how that song goes, okay? And you're setting yourself up for a problem. You're setting yourself up for a resistance charge, et cetera, et cetera.
I think we should actually back it up a little bit and to the stop itself. If I'm driving down the street and I'm minding my own business and suddenly I see a red, in my mirror, I'm required by law to pull over and stop. I can't just keep driving and looking.
Right.
I can't decide, you know what, I'm not stopping. In other parts of the country, there have been incidents where phony cops, because they'd use different kinds of cars on the other side of the world, stopping people and doing things or whatever. In those kind of cases, you can call 911 and say, hey, I have a car. I don't know if it's because I can't see any markings.
Right.
And they'll call for a marked unit to catch up to them. And
you shouldn't be pulling cars over anyway. And in California, you're not supposed to be pulling people over if you're in an unmarked car and you're not in uniform. If you're in uniform, you can be in an unmarked car.
Right.
And if you're in like a modified uniform, you can be in a marked car. But you can't be in an unmarked car and not in uniform pulling people over. Right.
Narcotics, like the two guys who got arraigned today from LAPD.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just ridiculous. But anyway, so I think that's the first thing people have to know. Like, if the red light comes on, the red and blues come on, you have to pull to the right and stop.
That's number one.
Right.
I mean, and then once that happens, you see people saying, "Well, I'm not going to roll my window down, or I'm only going to roll my window down so far." Okay, and that's and some of that is your right. Like if I ask you for your driver license and registration, would I rather the whole window come down so I can kind of feel like I have a little more control of what's going on inside the car? Sure. But if it's just a traffic stop, which you don't necessarily know, by the way, is the motorist, you don't really know why I stopped you.
Right.
You have a good idea probably if you know that you didn't stop at that stop sign back there, but you don't know for sure because that may be my excuse for stopping you for another reason.
If you're a
legitimate reason.
If you're a normal citizen, you're likely not going to know. You might think, was I speeding? Did I not stop, full stop or whatever? If you're a criminal and you get stopped, you know you're a criminal.
Right.
And you begin to give tells. And so, that's when, if you start asking too many questions, really what you should do is when the lights come on, you should turn on your interior light, put both your hands on the steering wheel, put your window down, and just wait for the officer.
Right.
And let him
and
walk
turn the
up.
car off.
Because he's going to walk up, and if it's me, I'm going to say, let me see your hands. I want to see your hands first.
Right. I'm going to tell you to do all that stuff anyway.
Exactly.
So it's just better if you already have it. If you already got it set up for me, it's just going to go a lot smoother for everybody.
But if you start looking back saying, huh? What?
Who, me?
Who, me?
That's a big one. Who, me?
Yeah, no, the guy next to you. Yeah, you.
Right. But when people are asking a bunch of questions, and here's why an officer may not answer you right away when you say, what did I do or why did you stop me? Number one, that officer's got to establish that the officer's in control of the stop, not you. And when I say that, the officer's the one that's in charge of the scenario. Now, the flip side of that is the officer has a responsibility for your safety while the officer's got you stopped, too. So it's not just that everything goes the officer's way. The officer has responsibility for you, too. If something happens, if you get hit by a car or whatever during this thing, the officer's responsible. So the officer has to take control of the situation because the officer's held accountable for the situation. But also, I know, like most police officers know, like most people who deal with people every day in their jobs know, that if I answer your first question, that opens the door to a bunch of other questions.
Right.
And then we're not getting to why I stopped you. And then you're starting to take control, and we're not about to have a debate. If I'm telling you to step out of the car, step out of the car. You can ask me for what as you're stepping out of the car. But it's not, I'm not getting out of the car till you tell me why.
Right. And I think this is a good place to interject this. And that is, on a normal traffic stop for a traffic violation, I don't want you out of the car.
Right.
In fact, if you start
You're
to get
better
out,
in the car to me.
I'm going to tell you to get back in it.
Right.
Because I want you in a little kill box. If you go south on me and I have to shoot you, I want you sitting.
You're right
in that
there.
one spot.
You're in one seat.
I want to put 5 or 6 rounds right at you.
It's literally like shooting fish in a barrel if it goes that way. And it's tough to say that, but that's legitimate because we don't know what you just came from doing.
Right. So, but on a normal traffic stop, the officer should walk up, and if I'm cool and I put my window down, he should say, "Hey, let me see your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance." I go, "Okay," it's him. "Okay, go ahead and get it." No, "Okay, here you go." "Why'd you stop me?" "The reason I stopped you was you failed to come to a complete stop back there. Stay in your vehicle."
Right.
And I go back to my car. Now I'm going to start scratching. And
or not.
I'm going to run you.
Right, definitely going to run.
Do all that back there. But, I'm probably going to just scratch you and, run you and scratch you. If you come back clean with no warrants and your license is valid, the insurance is, proof of financial responsibilities on file and all that stuff, I'm going to come back with your ticket. I'm going to hand you your stuff, and then I'm going to tell you that your signature is not an admission to guilt, merely a promise to appear in date and time indicated. If you have any questions, turn the numbers on the back.
Press hard. There's 3 copies.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's what should happen. If something else happens or the officer thinks something and he says, "Step out of the car," you should know that something's not right.
Right.
Because this happened to me. I was driving with my son, my younger son. He was about 15, and we'd taken him to dinner, he and his friend. It was just the 3 of us. And I had a car, and my car had expired registration. It was it was 30 days old. It was like the month prior. And so I'm driving it, and I see this black and white come off a side street, and he gets behind me, and I'm thinking, this guy's gonna. And sure enough, I get the red light. I pull over. The guy walks up, and he goes, "Hey, the reason I stopped you is you have expired registration, driver's license." So I give him all my stuff. I give him everything, and he's looking at me and my 2 sons. He knows he's looking at me and goes, "Okay, well, this guy's not a criminal." And he goes, "Did you know your registration was expired?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, you're going to take care of it?"
Right.
And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "It's on the list. It's just not at the top, but it's on my list."
Right, sure.
I'm going to
get to it.
He goes, "Oh, okay." He goes, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a little reminder then so you can taken care of it. Stay in your vehicle." Okay. Right. So he walks back. Now my son's cracking. "Hey, Dad, you're getting a ticket." And so I'm watching him in the mirror. His partner is in the cover position on the passenger side of the vehicle where he's supposed to be.
Right.
And the driver officer, who's the 2-striper, all of a sudden I see him walking back to my car, but no ticket book in his hand. And I'm thinking, and I was like, "Oh shit, here we go." He thinks, and I'm thinking in my head, okay, my name came up, similar,
right, something,
1,000 Contrerases, and So he walks up and he goes, "Hey, would you step out of the car, please?" So He opens the door. I step out and I walk to the back. And as I'm stepping between my car and the police car onto the sidewalk, the senior officer says to me, he goes, "Do you have a gun?"
Wow.
Well, when he says that, his partner, he's a rookie, is standing off to the side. When he heard his partner ask me if I had a gun, he just goes like this and unsnaps.
Wow.
And so when he does that,
are you wondering why he's asking you that at this point, or do you have an idea?
No, I have no idea.
Okay.
But so here's what I did. I just had my hands right here, and I said, "I don't know what you're about to do, but I'm a reporter with KPFK radio in Los Angeles. Whatever it is you're about to do, you better be right.
Right.
Now, what do you want me to do?"
Right.
And when I said it like that, he goes, "Are you a cop?" I said, "No." He said, "Were you?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Well, why didn't you say that?" Because I came back 10:35.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
So I go, "Well, I don't walk around saying, 'Hey, how you doing?' You go,
right. Why do I have to say that to be treated decently?
Right.
You know.
But I understood what was happening. I understood what was happening, and that's why I didn't overreact. But somebody who doesn't know, why do I have to get out of the car? My license is good. Step out of the car. No, I'm not getting out of the car. I don't know what you want. Just give me. Now you're in trouble because now you're starting to get to 140.
Because now you're taking another direction, and the problem is, and I always say this to people, you don't know if someone in a vehicle like yours, if someone who matches your description, if someone lied on you and said you did something. In your mind, you know you're just coming back from soccer practice, or you're coming from the frozen yogurt or something, right? You don't know what that officer may be under the impression that you're involved in. Just like a police officer doesn't know. We pull somebody over because they didn't stop at a stop sign, but that person may have just come from killing somebody. Mm-hmm. That person may have just done a drug deal and they got a trunk full of weight. We don't know that, but they know.
Right.
So since nobody's got a crystal ball and you don't know what's the other person's heart and mind, you got to take precautions. You don't know what that officer's thinking. You're not working with that officer's information, the information that they have. So you got to cooperate. Compliance. I say this: comply now, complain later.
Right.
If you do not comply and that officer's got to use force on you to get you out of the car, to get you to keep your hands where they need to be, you're going to get a charge on you. There's no way the police officer is going to put their hands on you and then just dust you off and send you on your way in this day and age.
Right.
There's handcuffs coming with that. There's charges coming with that. Officer's got to put their hands on you like that. They ain't leaving alone. You're leaving with them.
Yeah.
So why put yourself through that when you can comply now and then later you have some standing when you go to complain, because it's not like you're trying to get out of this charge that you've earned yourself now.
Right.
You are never going to win out in the street. We've said this before on this show. Right. It is not set up for you to win. You'll have a court date, but it's not right now. You'll have a chance to tell your story, but it's not right now. If you get a ticket, take the ticket and make sure you show up, or else you're going to have a warrant. And then you go to court, and you'd be surprised how often judges let people off on traffic tickets. Yeah, I'm amazed at how the high percentage of people that get off on traffic tickets.
You have a right to your day in court.
Yes, you do.
That's
Absolutely.
The Constitution guarantees that. You don't have a right to try to make your stand right there, then and there, out on the street. You don't have that right. And this is what is getting especially African Americans and Latinos. This is what is getting these young men in trouble. And especially if they've been involved in something, and they know they have, like with Ferguson. When the officer stops you, even if you did something, you're way better off just complying and then find out later what the officer knows or doesn't know. But if you start to say no, or if I'm driving in a hey man, yeah, you come here, but I'm still in my car,
right?
Yeah, if you turn and start walking. Stand by.
Right, because they're not going to let that go. I've never seen any officer just say, you don't want to come here, forget it then.
Yeah.
I've never seen it happen.
Or if you take off running, now it's on.
See, and here's the thing. So now the dog gets involved and everything else, right? And so when I was in K-9, the dog rides in the...
You're talking about Hillary? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Because she was barking the other day.
I heard about that.
Yeah. It was kind of weird.
The dog gets involved. And when I was in K-9, we used to have the dog in the back seat, right? Like everybody rides their dogs in the back.
Right.
And, we used to have a saying that when the back door pops, the bullshit stops. So you can't argue with that dog.
Please believe.
Yeah, exactly. You can't argue with that dog. You can't reason with that dog. You can't debate with that dog. That dog is coming for that ass.
Woo.
And if you don't do what you're told to do, the dog is going to bite. If we tell you if you move, the dog's going to bite you, please believe if you move, the dog's going to bite you. And people do believe that. And people are going to sit still most of the time, not all the time.
Right.
Probably about 70% of the time, even more than that, people are going to comply because they know that dog will bite them. And it's not like they can talk the dog out of it.
Right.
Whereas with an officer pulls a gun on you, a lot of people who, especially if you've had guns pulled on you before,
right,
that doesn't intimidate a hardened criminal.
If you're a parolee, that don't impress you.
That doesn't impress you because you know that the cop's that's going to gun you down in front of everybody most likely.
Have you ever seen him do this? What you gonna do? You gonna shoot me?
Yeah.
Shoot me.
Oh yeah. Especially if there's a crowd.
Shoot me.
Sure.
And then you see the officer reholster and go to something else.
Well, exactly. But you never see that with a dog, though.
No.
Nobody tells the dog, "Well, bite me then."
Yeah.
Because the dog's gonna bite you. So don't get yourself in that situation through non-compliance. Your obligation, part of the social contract, is that police officers, firefighters, etc., will go out and put their lives on the line. When there's a bomb that needs to be found, they're going to go in and find it. When there's somebody shooting up a mall or a bank, they're going to run in harm's way. So you don't have to do that.
Right.
The other side of that social contract is when you're detained, really detained, you are supposed to cooperate with that. And if you don't, there's consequences and repercussions.
That was the beautiful thing about the founding of this country, is that was the agreement. The agreement was, if you will voluntarily comply with the law and not interfere with other people's pursuit of happiness, the government has to stay out of your business.
If you do that, sure.
Unless you commit a crime, then they're going to step in. But if you don't commit crimes, if you don't go the criminal way, the Constitution is there. And that's why, I said it once, I'll say it again. The Constitution is hanging by a thread right now because progressives believes that that's a living, breathing document that can be interpreted and blah, 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 blah. And it's not.
It's amended. It's been amended before.
And it's not that. And whoever replaces Scalia's seat on that court is going to tip the country one way or another.
Right, because right now it's what, 4-4?
4-4.
Yeah.
And so if we go to the left, and there are people who want to see an America that looks like Europe, but all you do is, take a look at Europe or South America where they've tried this experiment, and they're all failing. So they're all failing states. And so, that's why the Constitution is so important, and it's so important that you know it. It's so important that you understand the law, but it's also important that you understand what your obligation is in this contract with your country, and that is voluntary compliance with the law.
And I don't understand why you wouldn't want to comply if you know, especially if you feel, hey, the police are going to beat my ass any chance they get if I give them an excuse. If you really do feel that way, then I really don't know why you wouldn't comply. If you're somebody who doesn't think that police will do that, then I can understand you kind of being a little silly and think, well, they're not going to do anything. And we've seen this with some parts of town where people are spoiled, don't have a lot of contact with the police. They don't believe that they can go to jail.
Right.
Okay. And I've seen people be absolutely and utterly shocked when the handcuffs go on because they don't think they can go to jail.
Did Zsa Zsa Gabor get handcuffed when she slapped?
Yeah, she slapped the guy. Yeah, exactly. That's why she slapped him, because he dared to pull her out of her car and treat her like she was everybody else. But if you're in a community and a segment of society where you feel that the police are targeting you, then why would you act in a way that's going to give anybody a reason / excuse or justification to put hands on you? Why wouldn't you comply? Right. I would think that you would comply first and foremost before anybody else, because you know the direction it can go in if you don't. So I really don't understand that, and I hope that we get through to some people with the comply now, complain later thing. I've started a little hashtag. I'm going to start using it more and more. Comply now, complain later. It's an urban survival tactic is really what it is. That's really what it is. We're out of time, man.
What?
I know, huh? Yeah. Wow.
I thought we were taking a break.
No, we're done. So we're going to we're in serious consideration of expanding our show. We're probably going to take it to 90 minutes at least starting next month, because we always run out of time and there's always more stuff that we want to get into.
Right. Okay. But, I just want to say that just right in line with what you were talking about, there's a new book. It's called The Rise of Violent Crime in America, and it was done by a criminologist at John Jay College. And I heard an interview with him, and I really want to try to get him as a guest by phone for the show, because in his new book, and I'm going to be picking it up this weekend at Barnes & Noble, but in his new book, he kind of dispels the myths about the rising crime being why it's rising, number one, the myth about blacks being targeted by law enforcement, how that's a myth, and the myth about poverty as being a contributing factor to higher crime. It's incredible.
Really? I'd like to read that one. Is that in the fiction aisle?
No, that ain't fiction.
I like to read that one because that's against everything I've ever seen or heard.
Exactly, and the interviewer, it was public radio, and the interviewer when he was doing the interview, and it's on my Facebook page actually.
Okay.
So, but when you can listen to it, but when you can just hear the disbelief in the interviewer's voice, we just can't accept that race doesn't play a part in this.
Right,
and he's got the data that shows.
Right, you're exactly right. We can't accept it. So listen. We're going to close on that note, and you can follow us on Twitter at Right Along Radio, and you can like us on Facebook, Right Along Radio Show. And if you have any ideas for future show topics, you can send us an email at rightalongradioshow@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Did you want to do your social media, sir?
No, and just I do want to say though on the Twitter, the Right Along Radio Twitter, the link for the Black Panther documentaries there. I just recommend you take a look.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So he go tweet it out. We retweeted it. Yeah. So, yeah, if you check out our Twitter feed, you'll see that the PBS documentary doesn't cost you anything. Very good. It's like an hour and a half, but it's a good hour and a half. Very, very educational.
Good info.
All right, and we'll catch you guys next week.